Going on, guys? This is Shield Football Talk, and today I'm bringing you my mock draft for the upcoming NFL draft. I'm very excited for the draft coming up. I'm going to be coming up with a lot more videos. This mock draft is kind of to let you guys know I'll be coming out with a ton of more draft videos over the next few weeks and, throughout the NFL draft. So stay tuned for that, and follow me on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, all that to stay up to date with those. I'll be doing a lot of team needs, a lot of positional rankings, stuff like that. Probably another couple more mocks after this too. But it depends on, if there are any trades, what we hear, that type of stuff. But I'll just get right into it. Number one, I've got Cleveland Browns. I'm taking Sam Darnold, quarterback out of USC. Now, this guy's my favorite player in the draft in terms of, positional value. I feel like Sam Darnold has that it factor about him. I'll talk a little bit more about it in my positional rankings for quarterback. That should be coming out later this week. But, I feel like Darnold is a guy that the Browns aren't going to pass up on. He's got that it factor about him, like I said. You saw the Browns owner at his pro day, which is very rare, and he was talking to his parents. I feel like that's kind of just, unless they're trying to set up the biggest smoke screen of all time, I just feel like it's kind of, a no-brainer at this point that the Browns are going to go with Darnold, even though I think there's still a 1% chance they go with Josh Allen. But moving on, I got the Giants taking Saquon Barkley. It's kind of a selfish pick on my part because as somebody who loves primetime football, and as much as the Giants play on primetime, seeing Saquon Barkley and Odell Beckham on the same field, same offense will just be so exciting to watch. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I'm not a Giants fan or anything, but I feel like Barkley and Odell Beckham will make for must-watch television. So, but it's also a very high floor, high ceiling player. He could be a Hall of Fame running back for all we know. He's probably the best running back prospect in a while, probably since AP. But yeah, that pick makes a lot of sense to me. They could go quarterback, but in this particular mock, I don't have him taking quarterback. I just think that Eli might have a couple more years left in him, and they could also trade out of this pick, but this is a no-trade mock draft. Next up, I got the other New York team taking Josh Rosen. It's a very controversial player in this draft. A lot of people are down on him. A lot of people are up on him. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I feel like Josh Rosen will, I think he's going to work hard. I don't think he's just going to, not care about wanting to win. I think he's a competitor. You don't get to this point in your career without being a competitor and loving the game. The injury concerns are a little bit concerning to me, though. He's got some concussion issues. It's something to keep your eye on. But Josh Rosen, he's been the Rosen one since he came out of high school. I just feel like the Jets, who've been a good job to rebuild over the last couple of years, I think this is kind of their piece that they put into the quarterback position to work with a really good offense coordinator in Jeremy Bates. That should be a good mentor for Rosen. But moving on, I got the Browns taking Bradley Chubb. Now, a lot of people have Bradley Chubb falling a little bit, but in my opinion, he's a blue chip player, and he plays a very premium position. And in my opinion, that kind of equals top 5 pick. Even with all the quarterbacks that could go in the top 5, Bradley Chubb is going to go at some point. I highly doubt he makes it past the Colts. So Bradley Chubb, I feel like it'll be too tempting for the Browns to pass up on the idea of having Myles Garrett and Bradley Chubb coming off the edge for them for the next decade. Two very good defensive end rushers. So I feel like, that pick just makes too much sense. But they could also trade out of that pick as well. But, the Broncos are going to take Baker Mayfield now. This is a very interesting pick because I feel like the contract they gave Case Keenum was kind of weird. They gave him a 2-year deal and a lot of guaranteed money. If he was going to be a bridge guy, who would have thought they would have given him a 1-year deal? But, who really knows? I feel like this pick just makes too much sense, though, regardless of the contract. Baker Mayfield is a guy that has a game that resembles Case Keenum a little bit. I feel like they're bringing Case Keenum in as a bridge guy for Baker to learn behind, and I think John Elway likes Baker Mayfield a lot. He's probably the best passer, or he was the best passer in the college game in this draft. I know like a site like PFF loves this guy. He was definitely, the best player last year, best quarterback last year in this draft with winning the Heisman and everything, leading his team to the College Football Playoff. So, that's who I have the Broncos taking for now, but that is subject to change, definitely. Next up, I have the Colts taking Quenton Nelson, guard out of Notre Dame. Very high floor player. He's looked at as probably the number 2 best player available in this draft. But, Quenton Nelson is a very talented player. There's no doubt about it. It's a nasty type guard. I find it hard to believe that the Colts would let this guy slip when, Andrew Luck obviously has a ton of health concerns. They need to keep this guy upright for sure. And that guard position is looking pretty weak right now. So, that makes a lot of sense to me. So, that's who I'm taking. Next up, we have the Bucs taking Minkah Fitzpatrick. A lot of people have this guy falling. I'm not really sure why. Minkah Fitzpatrick is definitely one of the best players in this draft. A very versatile type player. He can play corner, he can play free safety, whatever. You just plug and play him. And he's not a versatile type player like Jabril Peppers was last year, but he's very talented. Free safety. He can step in right away and be a very good leader for this team as well. So I think that's the secondary force the Bucs are going to need. Next up, the Chicago Bears taking Denzel Ward, corner at Ohio State. Again, it's been shooting up draft boards into the combine. You always knew this guy was an athletic freak, but the combine kind of confirmed it. Put up ridiculous numbers there. The only real knock on him is that he's only 5'10.5". It's a little bit undersized, but with the way this dude can play, he can end up being, like Chris Harris or somebody like that. So, this guy, I think the Bears and Bears fans should be very happy if they end up taking this kid. But, excuse me, he could end up going even higher than this. So, somebody to keep an eye on. Next up, Niners taking Calvin Ridley, wide receiver out of Alabama. This pick just makes a lot of sense to me. Garoppolo needs a weapon, and Calvin Ridley is, I think, consensus number 1 wide receiver in this draft. A very good route runner, stands 6'1", sub 4'5" type guy. I just feel like you can't really go wrong with this guy, and even though the Niners could go in a bunch of different directions, I feel like Ridley is kind of the obvious answer here. Next up, with the Raiders taking Tremaine Edmunds, another athletic freak. I feel like Tremaine Edmunds kind of the Hassan Reddick of this year's draft. Guy that maybe a lot of people didn't hear of during the college game, but you see the numbers he puts up at the combine and just sees that this is a man among boys in terms of size and athleticism. So I think you have to really like this guy coming out of the draft, and I've seen him as high as like number 3 on some people's big boards. So definitely a guy that could make a splash in this draft and go higher than people expect. But next up, I got the Dolphins taking Josh Jackson, corner out of Iowa. He's my favorite zone coverage corner in this draft. He had 8 interceptions last year, including some ridiculous picks, like the one against Ohio State, I believe. But moving on, the Bills taking Josh Allen, quarterback out of Wyoming. Now, I don't think Josh Allen will fall this far, but I believe the Bills will trade up at some point and take Josh Allen. But, some quarterback will probably fall, and, maybe the Bills don't have to trade up. But I think they'll at least leapfrog the Dolphins, if anything. But moving on to the Washington Redskins taking Courtland, Sutton, wide receiver at SMU, 6'4", got decent speed for the position. I feel like the Redskins need to replace Terrell Pryor. If you look at their pass catchers right now, they got Josh Doxson, who's still a question mark, going into his 3rd season as to what he's going to be. Jameson Crowder, you know what you're going to get from him. Jordan Reed, a guy that's going to be injured half the season. Can't rely on him, so I think they need that outside presence. But the Redskins are another team that could go in a bunch of different directions here, so, that is subject to change for sure. Next up, the Packers taking Derwin James, strong safety out of Florida State. Now, this is a guy that will probably go higher than this, but I couldn't really find a good spot for him to go before this, so I think the Packers fans should be very satisfied with if they could take Derwin James. He's certainly, in my opinion, the best player available at this point in the draft, and he plays a position that I think the Packers could need. I think their front 7 is solid for now, but I think they still need help with that secondary position. And I could see them taking a corner here. But I think Derwin is just too good to pass up on. Lamar Jackson, Cardinals, 15th. A lot of people think that Lamar Jackson is better than 15th overall. A lot of people think that he is worse than that. You don't really know what you're going to get from this kid, but I think if he goes to the right system and the right coach, right coaching staff, then I think he'll be a really good player, and I think Steve Wilkes will take a chance on him, especially considering the quarterback situation that the Cardinals have. Sam Bradford, I don't think is the guy that you want to really, put the franchise on his shoulders, because we all know about his injury history. So, I think the Cardinals could take Lamar Jackson and use Bradford as a bridge guy. So that's what I'm thinking. That was 5 quarterbacks off the board. That's all I have for quarterbacks coming off the board at this point in the draft, and I think they'll go faster than people think, like they do every year. But next up, we have the Ravens taking Mike McGlinchey. He's a tackle out of Notre Dame. He was a lot of people were high on him last year coming into the season, thinking he's going to be a really high pick, but I'm not so sure anymore. He could fall a little bit. He didn't have a great season. But I feel like he could play left tackle. He could play right tackle. Depends what they want to do with Ronnie Stanley, whether they don't want to move him on the right side or keep him on the left. But I feel like this is a Ravens-type pick. They need to bolster that offensive line a little bit. But next up, I got the Chargers taking Isiah Wynn. Now, I didn't really know what to do with this pick, to be honest. I feel like the Chargers actually don't have a ton of holes on their team, which is obviously a good thing. I think they could still use help on defense, but I think their biggest need right now is offensive line, and obviously that's a really important issue, especially with having an aging quarterback. And Isiah Wynn is a guy you can put at virtually any offensive line position. I've seen him listed as guard, center, tackle. He's a plug-and-play type player, and I feel like he could be a very valuable asset to the Chargers. So that's who I'm taking for now, but that's definitely subject to change. Seattle Seahawks, Connor Williams. A lot of people see him as the best offensive line prospect in this draft behind Quenton Nelson. Guy that can play tackle, can play guard. There's a little bit of debate about that, but regardless, the Seahawks need some offensive line talent. They do need talent in other areas too, especially corner, losing Sherman in free agency. But, I just feel like Connor Williams is probably their best bet right now at 18 overall. But next up at the Cowboys, taking Vita Vea, defensive tackle to Washington. I don't know if he'll fall this far, but he's a very good run stopper with some potential to be a solid pass rusher up the middle. I feel like the Cowboys, who are always looking for defensive line help, have to like a guy like Vita Vea. But, like I said, he might not fall this far. We'll have to see which team will take him. We'll probably go in the teens at some point. Next up, we got Lions taking Mike Hughes, cornerback out of UCF. Now, Mike Hughes is one of my favorite players in this draft. I think he's a really underrated corner. I think the Lions, who are a team that can use a lot right now, I feel like you don't have every single position 100%, checked off their list. I think best player available type approach right here would make a lot of sense, and I think Mike Hughes kind of be that guy. So, moving on, Bengals taking Will Hernandez, guard out of UTEP. Now, I feel like the Bengals' offensive line has been struggling ever since they lost a couple of guys in free agency a couple of years ago. I really like the fact that they got Cordy Glenn in that trade this year with the Bills to trade back. I think that is a very smart pick to get Cordy Glenn, who's still relatively young, to fill that tackle position. But I think they still need some help on the interior, and I think Will Hernandez is the guy that can solve that problem. Probably a guy that will probably go in the first round, and at a pretty good combine. So that seems like a good fit for them. Next up, we have the Bills saying Michael Gallup. I haven't seen a ton of film on Michael Gallup, but he's a really solid wide receiver out of Colorado. From what I've seen, from what I've liked, the Bills probably won't have this pick because they'll probably use it as a trade piece to move up. But for now, they got the Bills taking Michael Gallup. For now, they have this pick. I think they need help at the wide receiver position, and whatever quarterback they take, I think they will end up getting a weapon for him. So that's who I'm taking. Next up, I got the Rams taking Marcus Davenport. Now, we talk a lot about dream scenarios for teams. I think this is a dream scenario for Marcus Davenport. I mean, you get to live in Los Angeles, and you get to play alongside Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh, who are going to take as much attention as any defensive tackles will. So I think that's a dream scenario for Marcus Davenport, who is probably the number 2 ranked defensive end, and most people have at UTSA. So the pick makes a lot of sense to me, though. I'm not sure if we'll fall that far either. Next up, Panthers taking Jair Alexander. Ever since the lost Josh Norman, I feel like their secondary has been struggling a little bit. Jair Alexander, a very high floor type player. You really like what you see from him, but he is a little bit small, not only in height, but he doesn't weigh that much either. And you see him on film, you don't know if he's going to be able to hold on the outside in the NFL. But I think worst case scenario turns into a pretty solid slot corner for the Panthers. And at number 24 overall, that's about what you're going to get. And next up is the Titans taking Leighton Vander Esch. This is a guy that I really like out of Boise State. I feel like Mike Vrabel will look at this guy and see a younger self in him. A very athletic, huge linebacker. Titans are a team that could really need a influx of talent on the defensive side. I feel like their offense is set for now. They took Corey Davis last year, but I think they just need to start taking best defensive player available at this point, and I think that's Leighton Vander Esch. Or I don't think that, but I think that's who we'll go with. But I'll get to that in a sec. But the Falcons, Dallas Goedert, tight end of North Dakota State. I don't even know what the Falcons need anymore, to be honest. Just think they need to just keep adding talent. Could be on defense, could be on offense. But Dallas Goedert is my favorite tight end in this draft. I know they have Austin Hooper, but you really can't. You can't have enough tight ends in today's NFL. I think he could be a very valuable red zone target for them. He makes some circus catches if you've seen him on film at all, or seen him play live. But next up, this is the player I was talking about, Roquan Smith, linebacker out of Georgia, falling all the way to 27 of the Saints. Now, this is a dream scenario for the Saints, and I'm not sure if he's going to fall this far, but I will say that we've seen linebackers fall in the last couple drafts. You look at Reuben Foster. He was a top player in the draft last year, top 5. I know he had some other off-field issues, but he got medically red flagged at the combine, and then he got kicked out of the combine, and then he fell all the way to the end of the first round. So we've seen that from that linebacker. And Miles Jack, another guy who was a top 5 player in his draft a couple of years ago, fall all the way to the second round after getting medically red flagged. Roquan Smith could be a similar type player after getting medically flagged the combine, but the Saints, this would be an absolute steal for them. Roquan Smith is one of my favorite players in this draft class. I think he's going to be an absolute beast for them in this linebacker position the Saints kind of need help on. So that's my pick for them. Next up, the Steelers taking Justin Reed, safety out of Stanford. I don't even know what to do with this pick either anymore. Steelers could use a bunch of different things. I think they could need help replacing Ryan Shazier at the linebacker position. But Justin Reed, I think, is a guy that had a really good combine, rising in a lot of people's boards. And I think you put him at the safety position, and you are going to have a very solid safety there to bolster your secondary a little bit. But next up, we got Jaguars taking Equanimus St. Brown. This guy might not be a first rounder, but it's a very flashy type pick, 6'5". A lot of people know who he is. Goes to Notre Dame. He has a couple of other brothers who are top recruits. I believe are also Notre Dame guys. But Equanimus St. Brown, like I said, huge guy. And he ran a sub 4.5. So the athleticism is certainly there. And I feel like the Jaguars, team who lost Allen Robinson in free agency, are going to need that kind of explosive wide receiver on the outside, especially after giving Blake Bortles his money. So next up, you got Vikings taking Billy Price, guard center out of Ohio State. Very high floor type player, one of Ohio State's best offensive linemen for the last couple of years. Senior type, he was a senior. Like I said, I think the Vikings need some help on the interior of their offensive line. And, pay Kirk Cousins all that money. You got to pair him with some solid players. I think they'll end up putting him at center. But, who knows? He can play guard, too. So, I think it's a big plus. But next up, we got New England Patriots taking the local kid, Harold Landry, outside linebacker to BC. Edge player. I feel like, very underrated prospect. I feel like he's kind of the Derek Barnett of this year's draft class. Had a very successful college career, but athletically probably isn't what you quite want, and that's something the Patriots do need on defense. But I feel like getting an edge rusher like Harold Landry, something Bill Belichick will be very interested in. And finally, the Philadelphia Eagles taking Christian Kirk, wide receiver out of Texas A&M. Yes, that does make it 5 wide receivers in this first round, which I'm not entirely sure is going to happen, but I feel like this pick kind of makes a lot of sense for the Eagles. They kind of don't have any holes. I mean, you look at this team's roster, they don't have many holes, but you did lose Torrey Smith, and I feel like Christian Kirk is a guy that can bring you some speed on the outside, and that's what the Eagles need. For now, their top 2 guys are Alshon Jeffrey and Ertz, who don't have a ton of speed between them. So I think Kirk is a guy that can stretch the field a little bit. But that concludes my mock draft. Like I said, I'll be coming out with other positional rankings later in the week and throughout the draft, along with team needs. So subscribe to this channel. Follow me on Twitter. The links will be in the description below. And, comment what you think about this mock draft. This is my first mock draft for this season. I want your guys' feedback on it. I like some of the picks on it. I think a lot of them make sense, but, God forbid I forgot a player or something like that. So that'd be pretty nightmare scenario for me for my first mock. But, let me know. Maybe I messed up some of your guys' team needs. Maybe you don't actually need a certain position, but let me know. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and until next time.